Hey guys, this is Damien Leone, writer-director of Terrifier, and you're watching Mr. Death Breath.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Damien Leone, the creator, the writer, the director, the makeup artist of Terrifier. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I love your energy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. You don't have any idea how much of an honor it is. This is truly incredible. All right, so let's take it back to a young Damien Leone. Let's take it back when you were younger, okay? So,
Okay.
what made you want to be a makeup artist?
Tom Savini, special makeup effects artist. Yeah, he's my idol, my inspiration. When I was around 8 or so, I discovered his VHS tape Screen Greats. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like an hour long. It's just him doing his thing and showing you how the monsters were made and how he did the special effects in his movies. And that was the first time as a kid I ever saw anything like that. I ever saw how the monsters were created. And I actually saw it. It was the trailer at the beginning of the Friday the 13th Part 6 VHS. So that's where I first saw it. And then coincidentally, they actually had the VHS at the old mom and pop shop that I used to go to all the time. So, and that, the artwork, it's his face. It's this beautiful painting of his face with all his monsters around him. And I was like, oh, all right, someone makes the monsters. This is really cool. And then just seeing how that happens and seeing who created my hero, Jason, at the time,
Yeah,
just blew my
tattoo.
mind. Yeah, so it blew my mind. And then when I got a little older, around 12, I actually went to meet him at a horror convention. My mother took me to the Chiller convention in Jersey. So I was super nervous. And I met him, and he was so cool. And then somebody there at one of the booths was selling starter makeup kits. So I was like, all right, this is a good time to get the ball rolling here. So I bought one of those kits, and someone else was selling real machetes. They were dulled, and they had semicircles cut out. And that's like the classic Tom Savini gag, and he did it. It looks like it's in your neck and stuff. So like I got these goodies, went home, was hanging out with my friends, and just experimenting on them, just going through that makeup kit, putting liquid latex on them, seeing what it did, the mortician's wax and everything, and it was the greatest thing ever. And freaking out their parents, putting cuts on them and sending them home, because their parents didn't know I was into that at that point, so they couldn't fathom, in August, someone, someone putting makeup on, not being Halloween. So it was really cool to see the reactions. That got me fired up. So
that's awesome. I have to ask, did you, since Terrifier exploded, have you had a chance to meet him and talk to him?
I have. I met him. We did a con together.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I still fanboy and geek out around him. It's very, very, I'm not good with that. So he's like 5 tables down, and I knew he was going to be there. So I purposely I make Art the Clown Funkos in my spare time whenever I have a chance. I haven't had a chance in a long time. But so I made the first super bloody version specifically for him. So I brought that, and Scream Horror Magazine had done an interview with me, and they were asking about Terrifier, my inspirations, and I went on this whole rant about Savini and how much he means to me and everything. So I brought the Scream Magazine, the Funko. I ran over to Savini, and I'm like, oh, I just want to tell you I'm the biggest fan, and here, just to prove it that I'm not lying, I'm like, I talk about you in this book, and I made this for you. I just like shouted at him, threw him all this stuff, and then I was out of there. Just because I was so nervous and I didn't want to have a bad encounter or anything, and yeah, so it was cool. It was cool.
How did he react to that?
Super nice, super nice. He's very quiet. He was, oh, thank you. I'm glad I'm such an inspiration to you and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, very cool guy.
That is exciting. That is so cool. So when did you decide that you wanted to start making your own films? Because I know you take it back, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2011 with the Ninth Circle is when you put your first step in, right?
Oh, it was even earlier than that. I think the Ninth Circle short film was 2006.
Wow.
Somewhere around that. Yeah. That's how old Art the Clown is. He's been around for such a long time.
Wow.
So it started obviously because of the effects. So a lot of those Savini effects are camera illusions. So in order for me to really start figuring them out, I got my buddy's camcorder when we were very young, like 11 years old. And we started filming and making movies with the camcorder and doing things like that. And then I really got interested in the filmmaking process. And that primarily did take over. So I was more interested in creating the whole world, the whole story, and just creating this whole illusion as opposed to just the effect was mind blowing to me. So
that's amazing because Terrifier has such a feel. Like, every time I tell people about it, like I was telling people about it recently, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's Interview Damien Leone. They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh yeah. And I was telling them, like, it's one of those things where it's like, where everything's a universe. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the Avengers, but everything's a universe. The Conjuring has a universe. It's like what you made with Terrifier is you stripped it down to that monster chasing girl thing, but you made it so creepy in a way that I don't think it's ever been. So you almost brought it back to a simplistic intimacy of horror films that aren't the way they are anymore. They're always like, I don't want to take away from something like Annabelle because I like the third one, but it gets so big that it loses what makes it so scary.
Sure, there's like an intimacy that kind of disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. I don't know what the deal is with that. I think it's just because of my love for older films, and I don't really see a lot of new movies, believe it or not. I'm not a huge fan of like modern horror movies. So I'm a little behind the eight ball there. So, but yeah, I mean, it really is my love for old school movies from the 70s and 80s, and then just putting, I guess, a bit of my own modern twist on it, and hopefully something fresh comes out of that.
Definitely, because it has a whole feeling, your movie. It's a whole feeling, So what inspired the terrifying Art the Clown?
Wow. Okay, so when I made The Ninth Circle, which was I call it my first official short film, meaning I was no longer filming with a JVC camcorder. This was going to be actual film. I got to shoot that on 35 millimeter. Unfortunately, it looked so bad because I didn't have the money to get it properly transferred. So it looks like 16 millimeter, but if it was done right, it'd probably look a lot prettier. So that was going to be my calling card as either a filmmaker or a makeup effects artist. So they tell you, well, for me anyway, it's make something that's going to stand out, right? I mean, what's going to separate you from everybody else? Because I mean, that was a little bit before YouTube really blew up and everything, but I tell filmmakers all the time now, it's just like you really have to stand out because there's so much competition. So anyway, that was going to be my calling card. So I figured, let me just make this sort of kick-ass short where I just throw as much shit in there as I can and hopefully something sticks. So I took like all the things that I loved in horror movies and I just kind of condensed it into this 10-minute or so short. And one of the things I always loved was creepy clowns. So I figured, why not? Might as well have a clown in there. And and I always had this idea of a clown terrorizing a woman on a city bus in the middle of the night. I don't know where it came from. Who knows what inspires these things? But it was just this idea that was always kicking around in my head. And I said that would be a good way to start this off, where this one. But unfortunately, we couldn't get a bus, so I had to make it like a train station waiting room or something. So I said that'd be a good way to kick it off. This woman's just by herself, minding her own business, reading a book, and all of a sudden, this clown just shows up out of nowhere. Not even Halloween, and so right off the bat, it's off-putting. And then he starts messing with her, where it's sort of playful, and then it just starts gradually getting worse and worse and more uncomfortable. And he starts harassing her to the point where then he's trying to stick her with a needle, and that was it. So this clown idea that I had, and then it was, well, what does this clown look like? And I wanted to specifically stay as far away from Pennywise as possible, because what's the point? We're talking Tim Curry Pennywise at this point, who at that time was the king. There weren't a lot of clowns back then, so. True. I said we will go the complete opposite direction. So where he's colorful, art will be black and white. He speaks, art will be silent. Pennywise doesn't use weapons, art will use weapons. So going down the line, I have a lot to thank Pennywise for what art has become.
I did catch some inspiration. I was watching All Hallows Eve, and I noticed he kind of does a wave and his eyes light up, And I was thinking, like, that totally reminds me. If that's not like a nod to Stephen King, I don't know what is, because that little subtle moment.
Oh, glowing eyes have always freaked me out. I think the original Salem's Lot. I always loved that. So you can't go wrong with glowing eyes. Yeah.
So, tell me about the evolution of Art the Clown from as early as 2006 when you had him in an idea, like to early. Let's take it even further, like to pencil sketchings when it was a thought, to where he came now. How has he changed visually, and how has he changed with the two portrayals of two different actors? From Mike Gianelli to David Howard Thornton, which David Howard Thornton, dude, you're amazing. You know that. but yeah, so how's he evolved?
He's evolved quite a bit, actually, both physically and his mannerisms and whatnot. So physically, originally the sculpture was a lot more subtle. It wasn't as like the features weren't as bony and the face wasn't as gaunt if you watch the Nine Circles short. But then by the time I got to Terrifier, the short film, which is the third story in All Hallows Eve on the tape, I decided to refine the makeup and make it more zombie-like, make him a little creepier, and really bring out more of that classic devil structure and a little bit more comic booky Joker, where everything's very pointy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So yeah, he's you take from the best and boil it all together, and hopefully something cool that comes out. So we did that. So physically, that's where he changed up to that point. And then when we cast Dave, Dave's a lot more theatrical and a lot more animated. Okay, he brings more of a wider skill set. He's got more range. So we use that whenever we can to our advantage. So there's a lot of times, the way it works is I know exactly what I want every time from art, like down to the slightest head turn, okay? So like the first couple of takes, we'll pretty much do it that way. And then I let Dave go crazy for like the next 3 takes. And it just surprises the shit out of me. And then when I get in the editing room, I can pick and choose and take whatever I want. So it's a great collaboration. And on top of that, the third variable is accidents that happen that you never expect. And then whenever that happens, we get to throw that into the mix. So it's cool discovering what this character is. But we definitely discovered a lot more humor once I casted Dave for art.
So accidents. Do you want to elaborate on any particular scenes that have been accidents? Because I'm very curious.
Yeah. One of the funniest ones was in Terrifier when the Victoria character, after he puts the plastic bag over her face and she breaks free and then she takes the spike and stabs him in the foot, right? She runs away and then Art gives her the finger. Well, when that happened, I had actually already yelled cut and Samantha was coming back into the shot, but the camera was still rolling and Dave just gave her the finger as she was. So everybody on set left. And then whatever, I wasn't thinking about it. And then months later, when I'm editing it and looking at the raw footage, that popped up. And I heard everybody laughing. And I said, all right, if they're all laughing on set, maybe the audience will find that funny too. Art the Clown giving somebody the finger is never something I would have ever written. It's just like so on the nose trying to be funny that I wouldn't think about doing that. But I said, fuck it. Let's just take some chances with this character, some risk. And people love that. So that's an example. Yeah.
I really love that scene. I can't remember exactly where it came, what was before it, but I remember when Art does something and then he starts kind of like cheering himself on. He's like he's just like basking in his moment. And I love his character because he's very sinister, but he has this, like you said, he's kind of childlike in the playful behavior to a point, but then it just goes really dark. And I just love that. It's so good. And it kind of reminds me, the way you keep revisiting Art the Clown kind of reminds me what Sam Raimi did. Where he had Evil Dead 1, and then he did Evil Dead 2, and it was a tonal shift.
Right.
Pretty awesome.
And that's funny you bring that up because Evil Dead 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time, and that's sort of the template for Terrifier 2. Like I said that, I said that, what was it, probably a year ago now when we were making our Indiegogo video. I said Terrifier 2 has to be our Evil Dead 2, our Dawn of the Dead. That's where we take
nice comparisons.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to be very, very truthful here. Something happened to you with your film, and I think it wasn't fair and it was poorly done. Halloween 2018 stole your man-o'-lantern kill. And it wasn't done very well, and the film, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I thought it was okay. Despite my initial review, I didn't enjoy it as much. I don't think it's very good. But you did the kill better. So how do you feel about that? Did you get any royalties? Did you get an apology? Any acknowledgement? Anything? You did it better. Please tell us.
Well, thank you for that. I don't think that they stole it from us. I think it was just a coincidence. I'm glad that you think it's that ours is better. No comment. But look,
you comment. Go ahead.
We listen. Look at Terrifier. Look at how many things have we taken from Halloween, right? I mean, that's what it is. You borrow from the best, but you have to make it your own at the end of the day. So I mean, we wouldn't even exist without Halloween and Michael Myers. I mean, we're constantly paying tribute to. I mean, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Time. Halloween, and John Carpenter is one of my biggest heroes ever. So we even pay homage to Halloween in Terrifier 2 in a really funny, obvious way that I'm excited for people to see. So yeah, we're nothing but love and respect on that front.
Right on. Okay, so one scene that caught me off guard. I remember watching this. I was in my car, and there was a scene where Art the Clown saws a really pretty girl in half, and I remember being so shocked that I had to turn away. So first off, let me praise your genius on all that, because it implies that you show a lot, but you really don't show much. And when you do show stuff, it's almost like I could see the trick, and it was so shocking because my mind made it so much worse, and that was amazing. So I know that scene generated buzz because anytime I talk to someone about Terrifier, I'm like, hey, you know that scene? And they're like, oh, yeah, that scene. So how do you feel? I mean, did you expect there to be a buzz with the scene with Catherine Corcoran? Did you see that coming, or did you not think much of it?
No, we knew that if it was done right, it was going to be the scene that everybody talked about for sure. So we made it a point to take the most time with those effects and with the execution. Everybody knew that was going to be the scene. Catherine knew that was going to be the scene. I had a meeting with Catherine once I casted her, and I went to her neighborhood, and we met and had coffee, and we were talking about the script, and that scene came up, and she was just, as Dave puts it perfectly all the time, she's definitely the MVP of the whole movie, specifically for that scene, and because she gave her all for that, and she was so game and such a trooper. And she knew that was going to be the scene that made the movie if it was done right. So you can't really thank her enough for being such a generous sport with that scene, because it wasn't easy. And everything you see happening is really happening to her. There's no camera tricks. I mean, she's literally hanging upside down in a freezing cold, dingy building, upside down naked, and we're pouring blood down her, and it's going up her nose, and she's choking, and it's brutal, not fun. It was very intense day of shooting, very serious day. But we got through it, and I guess it worked because people talk about that scene. So that was the idea, definitely to shock people and have them look away if possible. Yeah.
You were a master of your craft, man. Really, so much respect to you, because that scene seemed so much worse than it was when it wasn't, That's
what I wanted to say. I appreciate that you said that, because sometimes when I explain it, I feel like I'm a psycho when I say that. When I say it's not as gratuitous as it really could have been. Meaning, like, I always challenge myself with a scene that is that intense and graphic, but not to walk a fine line where you just step over it just ever so slightly, but not where you're really going to just throw everybody off. It's like trying to make the most graphic and intense thing accessible to everybody. That's like my challenge. Not that it works, but when I do show something, it's very few frames. So when you see that graphic violence, it's very quick, where it's almost like subliminal images that you're getting. But we just, the scene is just so long, so I keep giving you those images. But again, we don't really linger on it that long.
Yeah. So, how long was that shoot for that scene?
It was one day just with Catherine, and then the next day was the inserts with the fake bodies and all those special effects shots. Yeah.
And how long did she hang upside down in total? Like, I mean, what was the longest take you did with her hanging upside down?
Probably 40 seconds tops. Yeah. She couldn't hang for much longer than that. So we had to be like a well-oiled machine. Everybody was in their place. Everybody knew, we had her like up on a platform, and camera would be rolling. And then, we had people who would go in, remove the platform, who would hold her up, who would bring her down. Then we'd start shooting, and then everybody had to come back in and get her back and reset. So yeah, it was tough. Yeah.
I bet. That's awesome. It sounds like you guys handled it well. Okay, so my next question. So, did you expect to be embraced by the community? Did you expect to be that, like, out of nowhere, shot in the dark that no one saw coming, that everyone just went crazy for? Because I know it went from, like, a subtle thing to a mass phenomenon. How does it feel to be embraced the way you guys are being embraced with your film? And did you see it coming?
It's amazing, man. It's very surreal. We're so grateful. We have the best fans, right? So supportive. Here's what I say. I mean, you don't expect that to happen, but we did know that we had something special with Art the Clown. So especially since I'd made the first short, and he was only the supporting character, Sorry. He was only the supporting character in that short film. He's in like the first 5 minutes, and then he's out of it. So when I showed people that short film, all they talked about was the clown. They were like, it was good, but that clown, man, there's something there. You should do more with him. And then when I made the short film Terrifier, which just solely, focuses on art, and I put that on YouTube, then it started getting a lot of hits, and people were talking about the clown again. And then the producer of All Hallows Eve found it, and it's just every time I do something with art, he gets more and more popular. So I knew there was something there, and if we did it right, I assumed he had the potential to take off.
That's awesome. Okay, so I have to ask. I'm gonna use my my media prowess to try to dig if I can and try to get something out of you here. Okay, so the Kickstarter mentioned a very bloody, massive scene, and you guys were trying to raise money for it.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us? Anything? Because I'm curious. Like, can you tell us a place, a setting, a potential, synopsis of what's happening in any way?
Oh, wow. I can. Should I? Should I? All right. Oh,
I mean, I'm sure everyone watching is like, yes, come on.
Well, whatever. If you spoil something, you spoil something. I mean, it's actually in the trailer. There is a clip of that scene in the trailer. It's in a scene that's referred to as the Clown Cafe. You'll see it in the trailer very briefly. There's some fire, and you'll see some dead bodies laying around. So
Okay.
that's not even a fraction of what happens in that scene. It's an insane scene that comes in about the 20-minute mark of the movie, and it's just you just don't see it coming. It's pretty wild. So yeah, I can't really say too much about it, but we definitely
plenty.
We went all out. Yeah, we went all out. We really delivered the goods with that scene. It's a massacre. Yeah.
So did you face any challenges with Terrifier 2? Aside from, obviously the budget point?
It was nothing but challenges, day after day. Day after day. I've never encountered so many challenges in my entire life on any project. This was above and beyond the hardest thing I ever worked on in my life. And then on top of that, you throw COVID into the mix, and it's just, you can't write it. So it's, we're constantly taking swings at curveballs, but listen, we got 95% of the movie in the can. I couldn't be happy. Yeah, I couldn't be happier with how it came out. It's better than I thought it was going to be, and I had high expectations. So I really think people are going to dig it for sure.
And I understand that you wear many hats. I heard that you were doing the makeup effects, you're directing it, you wrote it, and you're editing it. Yeah. That's what Lauren the Bear was saying. So how is that? How are you handling? Because you don't seem tired. You seem well composed. You seem like you've been sleeping. So how are you handling? You seem fine.
I act too. This is an act. I'm really dying inside. Listen, I love it. It's what I was born to do. I love doing it. No matter how hard it gets, you got to remind yourself that you're having fun. You're making movies. You're playing make believe. Building monsters. It's great, but it is a lot of work. It is very stressful. I actually do love the editing process the most because there's no clock and there's nobody breathing over my shoulder, and there's really no pressure. It's just me, and I actually get to spend time with the movie now, with the footage, and I get to see the magic happen when you put those two pieces of film together, or whatever you want to call it. It's not film, but and you just see that illusion work. It's just still gives me that feeling of, that feeling you would get as a kid on Christmas or whatever. It's like that's the only way I really get that now, and that's incredible still.
So speaking of pressure, I mean, with the success of Terrifier 1, did you feel any pressure to meet expectations or any pressure in general just to outdo yourself from the first film?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I challenge myself all the time. I never want to repeat myself to a degree. I always want to try and one-up myself and make it better. And hopefully, aside from just growing as a filmmaker, hopefully I got better, as a filmmaker, as a writer. But things could always be better. They could always be bigger. Like when I see people, because I read every comment, I'll read every article. I love that. I love getting criticism, anything. It doesn't matter. They say, I see some people saying, oh, this looks like more of the same, as like, this is more of the same Terrifier 1. Aside from art brutally murdering people, this couldn't be more different. This movie is on such a different level that you won't know it until you see it. It's just we really swung for the fences with this movie. It's big. It's big and it's crazy, and we take a lot of risks in the story department, just across the board with the characters. A lot of risk. Not playing it safe whatsoever. So it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting, and you should keep challenging yourself. And it's like the gun. Like that was art using a gun. That was a challenge to myself as a horror fan and as a filmmaker. Could I put the gun in the hands of, say, Michael Myers or Freddy, Jason, and could it be scary? I don't know. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it was something I desperately had to try. It worked. Yeah. So.
Okay, so I remember being in my car watching this movie on Netflix, and I remember, oh, that was really intense. Wow. And then they're zipping him up, and the coroner's about to open the bag, and then he sees him, and he's like this, and I'm just like, oh! And I'm like, damn it! Like I couldn't take it, dude. Like a part of me, like my skin went cold from my head down to my tailbone. So that being said, leading into that was clearly a connection that Art's coming back, right? So is there any connective tissue to Terrifier 2, and is there going to be a lead up to Terrifier 3?
Oh yeah, big time. Terrifier 2 starts off exactly where the first one ends. So we're right in the morgue, and we see what transpired there, which is really, really insane. I will say this because I've said this already, but the first 2 minutes of this movie might be the goriest first 2 minutes of any slasher ever made.
Oh gosh!
as far as I know. So that's exciting. But yeah, it takes place there. You see how Art has been resurrected, and then we jump ahead a year later in the same town, and that's where we meet Sienna and Jonathan, played by Lauren Lavera and Elliot Fulham, our two protagonists, and we're thrown into their world, and we see what they're about and how they're sort of coping with these murders, because now Art the Clown's has become a bit of a local legend in their town, and he is missing, and they don't know what the deal is. And Jonathan especially is really obsessed sort of with Art the Clown, and he thinks he's going to come back. So yeah, it's really cool, and we really follow the Sienna character. This is really her movie, and it's about her discovering what role she plays in this Terrifier universe and why Art the Clown is targeting her and Jonathan specifically.
That gets me so excited. I love that it's a direct sequel. Like you understand, like I am so freaking excited. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna lead to my follow-up because I can't contain myself. Is it coming out in 2020? Is it gonna be the one good thing about 2020 since it sucked in every sense of the word?
I'd hate to say no. I don't want to let you down. We really don't know. I can't say, but we're moving ahead as fast as we can. If it did come out in next year, I don't imagine it coming out deep into next year. So we're going to get it out as soon as possible. I hear it every day from the fans. I hear it more from Lauren, who's more, hounds me all the time. When's it coming out? When are you done with the teaser yet? Come on. Yeah. So just to shut her up. We'll try.
I have to ask you, so where do you want this franchise to go? I mean, you're at 2, so it's a franchise now. Where do you want to see it go? I mean, do you want to see him fight the Avengers? Like, do you want to see him get as big as Freddy? I mean, honestly, sky's the limit. Such a great character.
Sure, it'd be a dream to have him be in the same league as Freddy one day.
He really is, man.
That means a lot. I've said that I want to make 3. I definitely want to make 3. I have an idea for a solid trilogy if we do make one. Yeah. Because my biggest fear is just running out of ideas and it just not fresh anymore, and then eventually jumping the shark, and he loses all of that magic and mystique that he has.
Right.
But who knows? If the fans really, let's say we do make a part 3, and then a couple of years go by and people, they're just, they haven't been quenched and they're dying for it, and then I come up with another cool idea or angle, I'll definitely go back to the well. The Art the Clown well. We'll see.
You always jump to the shark when he's fighting the Avengers. I'm just saying, like maybe that's when it's gone too far.
Listen, if that's the way he's gonna jump it, I'm on board. Let's do it.
Pretty epic way. All right. So my final question. Aside from this, and maybe you're not thinking this far ahead because I understand you have a lot on your plate and all the hats you wear. So what's after this? What are you going to do next? After you finish this film, what's the next thing you have in mind? Terrifier 3? Something else? A new character? What's Damien Leone going to come up with?
I do actually. Well, Terrifier 3 is obviously going to be the easiest thing to make because it's already a proven, yeah, it's already a proven film. So I'm sure we'll be able to raise money for it. But I really desperately want to make a zombie film, an epic George Romero zombie film.
Oh, hell yeah. I love George Romero.
Oh, he's just another one
Not
of my.
the daddy right there, man. One of my first horror movies, Night of the Dead.
Yeah, see. Dawn of the Dead's my favorite. One of my favorite movies of all time. So this would be sort of take place in between like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead.
Right on.
Yeah. It's really cool. And I think I already have the script written. And just like I did with Art the Clown, where you take something that's so familiar and feels like it's been done to death, I feel like I put my own spin on the zombies and I could still do things that you haven't quite seen before. So I really hope I get a chance to make it. Yeah. But it's very big. It's very, very big. So you're talking millions and millions of dollars to make it. So I don't know. I don't have those connections yet. Hopefully Terrifier 2 opens some more doors. Yeah.
It's a keeper.
Yeah. So, and I want Sylvester Stallone to be the star.
Right on. There you go. That could work.
I'm
to work with you, I'm sure. Especially your level of talent. And I want to add something to what you said. You said that you take an idea and you make it fresh again. And that's funny because that's the best way I describe your movie. Every time I talk to someone about it, I'm like, he took the slasher genre and just made it unique and fresh and original. You managed to revitalize something that was honestly long dead, which is crazy.
Yeah, I hope we did that with I really appreciate that. But I hope we did that again with part 2, because now part 2 has this whole other tonal shift but it was very important that I took what worked in Terrifier 1. I was always conscious of that and made sure that that's still in there. That gritty grindhouse, it's very much a slasher at its core, but everything else around it is so drastically different. And there's this really, what could I say? Well, we know there's a supernatural element involved that's very new. And aside from that, the Sienna character is fascinated with mythology and fantasy, things like that. So there's this whole sort of fantasy element wrapped around the movie as well. It has a very unique tone, which I'm excited to see it because I'm still editing the movie. It's one thing to know what it is in the script, but then when you actually see it from start to finish, I don't even know what it is yet. So I'm excited to see what it is. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Wow. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on my channel. It's been such an honor. Like I've told you before when I was going to interview you, I explained to him, like, this is like meeting Wes Craven when he made the first Nightmare and, Bob Shea was passing around his 16 millimeter to different theaters. That's what this is like to me. So it's an absolute honor to have you here. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for being on. It's been such a pleasure.
Dude, that means so much, man. This was a blast. Again, I love your energy. I had such a good time. I'll come on anytime. Maybe when whatever the next stage is, come on, talk about Terrifier 2 again.
Oh, it'd be a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, buddy.